Hey, it's Brian. Welcome to the Awards Contender. So, a few of you have asked me the last couple weeks, what do I think about that Oscar rule about actors, the new change starting with the 99th Academy Awards and then moving forward? I have some pros and cons to this new rule. I think there's some good that can come out of it. There's also some bad. We have to talk about some of the older examples where an actor could have gotten into the same category with two performances. This is something that doesn't happen every year. I would say maybe every 5 years this comes up and we talk about it and we say, oh man, does category fraud have to happen again? Here is the new rule, if you didn't know. Starting with the 99th Academy Awards, the same person, the same actor can get into one acting category twice, can be nominated for two performances in one category. The rule has always been, as an actor, you can get two acting Oscar nominations, one in lead and one in supporting, but you can't get both in lead. You can't get both in supporting. That's gone back many, many decades. In the first few years of the ceremony, like the late 20s, early 30s, you would often see the same person get into one category twice. But I would say around the mid to late 1930s, they did implement this change where you can just be nominated once in an acting category. That has been the same for decades, from the 40s till now. When we think about our predictions for Best Actor, for Best Actress, you have someone who has two bonkers great leading performances. We have to think to ourselves, okay, which of those two performances will they be nominated for? Is there a possibility they can go supporting for one? Because then they can get two nominations, which does happen here and there. I mean, it's kind of rare. You don't see it every year or anything. But sometimes there is that category fraud of it all of like, well, I want to get two nominations. This part is really a lead, but we're going to put it in supporting. I think maybe the most egregious example of that is getting Jamie Foxx two acting nominations for 2004. He's obviously the lead of ROWE, and he was winning for that movie, so that made sense for that performance to get into lead. But then he also goes supporting for Collateral, shows up pretty much everywhere, gets the Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor for Collateral, and that's always made me laugh. I'm like, that is a lead performance. I guess you can argue because Jamie Foxx at the time wasn't as big of a star as Tom Cruise. Like, Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise are both in that entire movie, basically, that Fox is supporting Cruise. But that always didn't feel right to me. It just felt like category fraud. That should be a performance, Jamie Foxx in Collateral, that's also in Best Actor. If those two movies were coming out in 2026, that could happen. For early 2027, Jamie Foxx could be nominated in Best Actor for two performances. And one of my questions, you guys, now that this rule is starting up, like, will it happen? Like, will somebody get two nominations in a single acting category this coming season, maybe the year after? The person we're all looking at right now is Sandra Hüller, who's in 4 awards contenders for 2026. 2 in lead, 2 in supporting. The 2 in lead are Fatherland, a film I'm about to see at the Cannes Film Festival in a few days, and Rose, which she won Best Actress for at the Berlin Film Festival. Both films have been picked up by Mubi. It's the same distributor, so will they try to get her 2 nominations in Best Actress next year? Maybe. And then she's also in Project Hail Mary, which has already come out, been a big hit with critics and audiences. She has that very memorable karaoke scene. In my review of Project Hail Mary, I was like, I think if someone gets into acting for this at the Oscars, it'll be Ryan Gosling. But Sandra Hüller is on the table for that. And then you have Digger, the new Tom Cruise movie coming out in the fall. She has a supporting role in that film. And Digger, I could see getting into picture, director, actor for Tom Cruise. Maybe Sandra Hüller, like depending on her role in that movie, comes along for the ride. We are looking at potentially 4 acting Oscar nominations for Sandra Hüller. Could you imagine that? 2 in Best Actress, 2 in Best Supporting Actress. I don't think that would ever happen. I think the Academy would get some pushback with this new rule if one person got 4 of the 20 acting slots. But it's possible she gets 2 nominations in Best Actress and then maybe 1 in Supporting Actress. She gets 3. I do think that could happen, so prepare yourself. I do think it's interesting this rule is being implemented right now. Like, why now? Why not 20 years ago? Why not before we got to Revolutionary Road and The Reader for Kate Winslet? I think that's the most famous example where I would say there was an almost 100% probability Kate Winslet would have gotten in at the Oscars in Best Actress for both movies, for both The Reader and Revolutionary Road. That was a very chaotic season. You had both of those standout lead performances in those movies, getting tons of critical acclaim, getting lots of nominations. Both movies come out in December. They're both huge awards contenders. At the Golden Globes, she wins twice, lead actress for Revolutionary Road and supporting actress for The Reader. Because there are segments of The Reader without Kate Winslet, she went supporting. Because at the Oscars, at that time anyway, it was impossible to nominate her in Best Actress twice for both movies. So she's great in both films. One had to be lead, one had to be supporting. So she goes supporting for The Reader. She also wins in that category at SAG. She loses Best Actress at SAG for Revolutionary Road to Meryl Streep for Doubt. At BAFTA, Winslet is nominated in Best Actress for both movies. For both Revolutionary Road and The Reader, she wins for The Reader. And then at the Oscars, they bumped her up from supporting to lead for The Reader, and Revolutionary Road did not show up for Kate Winslet. It got into a few other categories like Best Supporting Actor for Michael Shannon, but Winslet not having an Oscar nomination for her incredible performance in Revolutionary Road, that's always rubbed me the wrong way. What's crazy when you think back to that race, it's like she could have gotten the number 1 most amount of votes for The Reader in lead actress, and then the number 2 most amount of votes for Revolutionary Road. She could have been a number 2 there for Revolutionary Road, but because of that rule, you can only be nominated once in an acting category. That had to be dropped to 6th place. And then someone lucky, let's say Melissa Leo for Frozen River or Angelina Jolie Changeling, they would have been in 6th place, but because of that rule, they got to be bumped up to 5th place, and they have an Oscar nomination there that year in Best Actress for all time. If this new rule had come out, let's say 20 years ago, Kate Winslet probably gets into Best Actress twice. And it would have been well deserved. It would be interesting looking back. Would she have still won for The Reader? Or would she have split votes? That's going to be an issue moving forward, as I'll talk about in a second. But before I get to the pros and cons of this new rule change at the Oscars, I thought it would be worth mentioning some of the other main examples of years where someone could have gotten into one category twice. It's not just 2 or 3 examples, there's a bunch. There was like 15 to 20 I came up with in just a matter of minutes. You have Leonardo DiCaprio, 2006. He's in Blood Diamond and The Departed. He's great in both films. The Departed wins Best Picture and Best Director, but he gets into Best Actor instead for Blood Diamond. I feel like if this rule had been implemented by 2006, DiCaprio might have gotten into Best Actor twice that year. Nicole Kidman, 2001, Moulin Rouge, and The Others. That would have been really cool if she had been nominated twice in Best Actress for those movies. She's nominated for both at the Globes because one was like drama and the other one's musical. She was able to be nominated for both in different categories, but I feel like The Others, because it's a horror film, maybe that wouldn't have happened, but that would have been well-deserved, her getting in twice for 2001. Jessica Chastain, 2011, she's in like 7 films that year? She's great in so many. I think The Tree of Life is the obvious film she could have been nominated for at the Oscars. They instead went with The Help, which is also in Best Picture. It's competitive to win for Octavia Spencer in Supporting Actress and an Actress for Viola Davis, of course. Because Jessica Chastain was so wonderful in a variety of projects that year, I feel like if this rule had been implemented by then, she might have been nominated twice in Best Supporting Actress. I think it would have been for The Help and The Tree of Life. Alicia Vikander, I think because she's nominated in Best Supporting Actress at the Oscars for The Danish Girl, she ends up winning there. I feel like maybe she could have gotten 2 nominations in that category, one for The Danish Girl and one for Ex Machina, which the Globes nominated her for, and I think BAFTA too, in Supporting Actress. She's really a lead in The Danish Girl. If the Oscars, like, they had to nominate her for that film in Supporting Actress, Ex Machina could have been on the table as well. Sebastian Stan, just recently, right, for 2024, that was an interesting season for him. He wins the Golden Globe for Best Actor for A Different Man, and then he gets the Oscar nomination in Best Actor for The Apprentice, a different film. So that was interesting. Like, he was only nominated at the Globes for The Apprentice in the drama category, and then in comedy, he's up for A Different Man, wins the Globe. We're like, oh, maybe that'll be his Oscar nomination, but no, they go for The Apprentice. I don't think he would have been nominated for both of those performances in Best Actor. It was just too crowded, too competitive. But there would have been the possibility, right? I mean, winning for one performance, getting nominated for another. He was up for both. Margot Robbie at BAFTA got into Best Supporting Actress twice, for Bombshell and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She gets in at the Oscars for Bombshell. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it wins Best Supporting Actor for Brad Pitt. It's in Best Actor, it's in Best Director, Best Picture. Maybe Margot Robbie was in like 3rd or 4th place in the votes, not just for Bombshell, but also for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Because of that rule, like, she couldn't be nominated for both. They went with Bombshell. And I'm always like, man, she should have also been nominated for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She's just as good in that film as she is in Bombshell. So that's another example. Real quick, you have Jeffrey Rush, Shakespeare in Love, and Elizabeth. Sean Penn, Mystic River, and 21 Grams. Scarlett Johansson, she misses a Best Actress or a Best Supporting Actress nomination, I think partly because of category confusion. For both Lost in Translation and The Girl with the Pearl Earring, she was nominated for both films in Best Actress at BAFTA. Didn't even get in at the Oscars, which is crazy. And then going a little further back, you have Dennis Hopper for both Blue Velvet and Hoosiers. He gets in for Hoosiers at the Oscars. And Diane Keaton for Annie Hall and Looking for Mr. Goodbar, 1977. Like, you could argue she's even better in her more dramatic performance in Looking for Mr. Goodbar. She gets nominated at the Oscars for Annie Hall, and she wins. So, like, if this rule had always been there, you could get 2 acting nominations in one category, Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress. Like, you could get up to 4 if you had a truly tremendous year. I wonder what the last few decades would look like at the Oscars. Would it be very different? Would this maybe have only happened once or twice? Let's say Kate Winslet, 2008. It happens for her there. Maybe one other time, but basically it's like almost never happening. I don't know about you. I suspect this would happen very rarely. I just think for the same person in one calendar year to have 2 amazing performances everyone gets behind, both are campaigns. We get to Oscar nominations morning, it's almost expected. They're going to get in for both. Best Actor, Best Supporting Actress, whatever it is. I think this will be a rarity. Even though we have the rule now, we will be looking at next year's ceremony and say, maybe Sandra Hüller, maybe somebody else, maybe they can pull it off. That would be a really exciting moment. I think there's both pros and cons to this. I have a few pros. Let's start with those. I think number 1 is just basically, if somebody gives 2 dynamite performances that are both lead or both supporting, they should both qualify to be nominated. If that happens, which again I think will be rare, if someone is great in 2 performances in one calendar year, it should be allowed they're nominated for both. Like, if they get enough votes from Academy members, like they're in the top 5 for both performances, they should both get in. And the second thing is less category fraud. I think if you have somebody who's great in 2 movies in a single year, they're both clearly lead or both clearly supporting, we will just put them both in the same category and put our hands up and hope for the best, hope they both get in. It probably won't happen, but this desire, this obsession for category fraud to put someone in the conversation in the various awards races, they've been great in 2 films. I think this new rule will eliminate at least some of that. Now, on the other hand, I do think there are some cons to this. I have a couple questions. I don't know how you feel about it. Number 1 is less room for others. What I wouldn't want to happen is somebody gets into, let's say, Best Actress twice, and it's someone who's been around for many decades. It's a very talented actress. She gets 2 nominations, and because she gets in twice, someone who is right on the edge, let's say a younger actress who's really great in a film, like an independent film or something, she's right on the cusp. She's gotten in a few precursors, like she's gotten in a few places, and she barely misses that 5th place slot for her first Oscar nomination, let's say, because someone of much bigger stature got in twice. That's the piece of it I wouldn't love. I mean, we don't know the final tallies, we wouldn't really know. But that's the piece of it. I wouldn't really be a fan of that happening, where someone I'm really cheering for months, like they're close, they might get in, and no, they barely miss. And then someone who's great in 2 films gets in twice. Like, that might bother me. Number 2 is I feel like campaigning might be tricky. If someone's great in 2 films and they're campaigning both performances for many months, they are schmoozing, they are shaking hands and kissing babies, and they're trying to get in not just for 1 performance in 1 acting category, but for 2, how would that campaign strategy work? Like from studio to studio, if it's 2 different studios, different producers and stuff, I feel like there could be a situation where like 1 performance is being campaigned a lot, the other one's being campaigned a lot. We're kind of like pulling the person back and forth, and then they miss for both. When maybe it would have been smarter to just like heavily campaign 1 of those performances to get 1 nomination. So that's also a con. And then the third very obvious thing, I feel like this is going to happen. Let's say it does happen. Sandra Hüller gets into Best Actress next year for both Rose and Fatherland. She will probably cancel herself out. If someone gets in twice, the votes will cancel each other out and someone else will probably win. I think back to 2008, Kate Winslet, if she had gotten into Best Actress at the Oscars for both The Reader and Revolutionary Road, like some of her votes that would have gone to The Reader might have gone to Revolutionary Road, and she might have lost to Meryl Streep for Doubts. I mean, she won at BAFTA. She did win at BAFTA being nominated for both. You can point to that and say, if someone is so strong, like, it's gonna happen. They will make it happen. We're not gonna split votes and then have like a 3rd place person rise to the top and we're like, oh, why did you start this new Oscar Rule Academy? Now we're gonna have someone who's great in 2 films and they can't win for either one. Someone else takes the prize. I feel though that could happen. I feel like if Sandra Hüller gets in twice next year and she loses, and let's say she wins a couple things along the way at the precursor ceremonies, we might point to her getting in twice and say that's why she lost, because of vote splitting. So that's also something to keep in mind. That's also something to do with this new rule I have some questions about. But overall, I think it's interesting. It's intriguing. I'm curious to see if anything changes next year or the year after. Will someone get in twice to Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor or Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress? That will be a moment. It has not happened since what, the 1930s, almost 100 years ago. So even if that person doesn't end up winning, if something happens where like they can't win the prize ultimately and we blame vote splitting, whatever it is, I really like this new rule ultimately, despite some reservations. I think it's exciting. I'm curious to see how it's all going to shake out. So let me know in the comments below. What do you think of this new rule? Do you think it should have been implemented? Will it make a difference? Should it have started decades ago? Should it have been there the whole time? Like, I'm curious to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time at the Awards Contender.